In a late-night address on Saturday, Prime Minister Modi made some big announcements about India's vaccination drive. A third dose, which is being described as a precaution dose, will be given to those above the age of 60 with comorbidities, as well as healthcare and frontline workers. Prime Minister Modi also announced vaccinations for children between 15 and 18, which will roll out from the 3rd of January. While those big announcements leave us with bigger questions, opposition parties have been quick to claim credit for the Prime Minister's announcements, saying their suggestions are finally being taken on board.
60 वर्ष से ऊपर की आयु के कोमॉर्बिडिटी वाले नागरिकों को उनके डॉक्टर के सलाह पर वैक्सीन की प्रिकॉशन डोज का विकल्प उनके लिए उपलब्ध होगा। साथियों, 15 साल से 18 साल की आयु के बीच के जो बच्चे हैं, अब उनके लिए देश में वैक्सीनेशन प्रारंभ होगा। मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों,
Finally, a big milestone in India's vaccination program, the Prime Minister announcing booster shots for those above 60 and vaccination for 15 to 18-year-olds starting the new year of 2022. Soon after began a Twitter war among the opposition over taking credit for the announcements made by the Prime Minister, with the Congress asking for the logic behind vaccinating children above 15 and not above 12.
Why have you not formed a policy? आपकी नीति क्यों नहीं है 15 साल से कम के युवाओं के लिए? और वो भी तब जब आपने सुप्रीम कोर्ट को 22 जून को शपथ पत्र देकर कहा कि हाँ, हम 12 साल से ऊपर तो अभी लगा सकते हैं।
Children, however, are excited.
And yesterday our Prime Minister addressed our nation and he told us that there will be vaccination starting for all the children, and I'm extremely excited that we will be able to continue our normal lives, we will be able to go to the school.
Meanwhile, the medical community has welcomed the decision, calling it a step in the right direction.
The vaccination program for the kids which has started, so that is something which everybody was looking forward to, and it has been announced, which is a right move ahead in the current times when we are seeing a surge of the variant.
और इसके साथ साथ बच्चों में, क्योंकि एक ग्रुप था जो कि ज्यादा प्रोन था इन्फेक्शन के लिए, और इसमें यदि वैक्सीनेशन हो जाएगा तो निश्चित रूप से ये बच्चों को भी सुरक्षा कवच मुहैया कराएगा।
The Prime Minister's announcement comes as a good news, a big milestone indeed in India's vaccination program. But some basic questions remain unanswered for now. Will the third shot be the same as the first two doses? Will there be a new vaccine? Will the vaccine be made available so quickly? In Delhi, Shonakshi Chakravarti for NDTV.
Night curfew will be imposed in Delhi from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. starting tomorrow. The Delhi government has said as the national capital reported 290 fresh cases of COVID, a 16% jump from yesterday. There's also been one related death in the last 24 hours. Meanwhile, Mumbai today reported 922 new cases of coronavirus in 24 hours, a 21% jump from yesterday when it logged 757 cases. This is the city's highest single-day spike in nearly 7 months. Well, to talk about all of this, we're now being joined by Professor Vidyasagar, head of the COVID Supermodel Committee. He's on left, right and centre tonight. We're also being joined by Dr. Suresh Kumar, who's the MD of LNJP Hospital and member of the Delhi COVID Task Force. Dr. Anupam Sibal, Group Medical Director and Senior Pediatrician with Apollo Hospitals, is with us tonight, as is Dr. Om Srivastav, member of Maharashtra's COVID Task Force. Dr. Vidyasagar, let me begin with you and focus first, of course, on those big announcements we heard from the Prime Minister late on Saturday night. Why has the government, in your opinion, decided to open up vaccinations only for 15 to 18-year-olds and not the entire 12 to 18-year-olds group?
Well, first of all, I think that 15 to 18 group is not very much at risk, and the 12 to 18 group is even less at risk, and below 12 are still less at risk. So in terms of opening up, I don't think there is a major harm in going slow on that because we don't know the long-term impact of these vaccines. Children's physiology or even adolescents' physiology is very different from that of fully grown adults. On the other hand, the emphasis on senior citizens, especially senior citizens with comorbidities, in my opinion, is the correct approach because if you think about teenagers who go to school and contract some version of the COVID, they are not so much at risk themselves, but the real risk is that they will pass it on to their parents or possibly to their grandparents.
Right.
I think that there is no big hurry for that, in my opinion.
Okay. Dr. Anupam Sibal, is that an assessment that you agree with? The fact that it's not children themselves who are really at risk, whether it's the 15 to 18 age group or, the 12 to 15 age group, it's essentially if they're going to school and they're coming back and there might be elderly relatives at home who would be at risk. Your thoughts on the vaccine decisions we've heard from the government?
Good evening, Ankita. Always a pleasure being on your show. So I think the medical community has welcomed the decisions that were announced by the Honorable Prime Minister. We all know that everyone needs the vaccine. It's a question of how many can you vaccinate at one particular point in time. So the response has to be graded, which is what happened when we started in 16 January. And then we saw, sequentially, there were more and more groups that were included. And that's something that's going to happen this time around as well. We're starting with the 15 to 18 on the 3rd, which is 50 weeks after the vaccine program started. And then a week later, we're going to go to the frontline and healthcare workers and older than 60 with comorbidities. And as time goes by and as this subgroup gets vaccinated, the vaccination will get opened up for the 3rd dose to other population groups. Children between 15 and 18, again, it's really graded on how many can you vaccinate in the first go. And I'm pretty sure that with time, 12 to 15 will also get opened up. Yes, kids do run the risk of carrying the vaccine home and, making the vulnerable grandparents susceptible to getting exposed. So that's the reason why we are keen that kids get vaccinated. 15 to 18, again, let's not ignore the fact these are kids who have board exams. These are kids who have entrance exams. And, ask the parents of someone who have a 17-year-old studying for the IIT JEE and the stress that they're under, the vaccination is going to take some of that stress away. And I think this is very, very important.
Okay, so you're saying there's a psychological sort of impact of it as well. Dr. Vidyasagar, there's still lots of unanswered questions. Will eligible citizens get a 3rd dose of the same vaccine that they've already received, or is it going to be a different one? If there is this sort of mix and match of vaccines, what is the data that we have about what combinations are going to be effective?
So as far as I know, in India, studies are still underway, but there was an interesting study out of the UK in which they tried about 7 different vaccines, and they tried various combinations. That is, they call it a booster, so I will use the same terminology. Should the booster be the same as what you have had the first 2 times, or is there a benefit to changing to a different type of vaccine? And the studies indicated that there is some benefit, not spectacularly high, but some benefit to mixing and matching. And the other interesting study, if I remember the outcome, other interesting outcome of the study, if I remember correctly, was that the boosters only seem to produce more antibodies. They did not seem to improve the T-cell mediated immune response, which is what gives long-term protection.
Right. But 80% of Indians, Dr. Vidyasagar, have got Covishield. Do we have enough Covaxin doses for this kind of mix and match?
I would not know that. I presume that the production could be ramped up. If all 80% would go for Covaxin, then your statement is correct. I think there would be potentially a production constraint. But it may be that not all the 80% need a follow-up shot, right? I think the whole point of what we have been discussing is that unlike the European countries or UK or USA, we are not recommending blanket follow-up doses for everybody.
Okay.
So out of that 80%, if only let us say 7 or 8% require this follow-up dose, then maybe between all these other types of alternatives, we might have enough doses, I think.
Right. Dr. Suresh Kumar, I'd like to bring you in because right now, just a little while ago, we've heard from the Delhi government that there is now going to be a night curfew in effect. This is the Christmas New Year week. Clearly, people, are partying, their festivities all around. And, this is happening at a time when we're seeing a rather alarming spike in coronavirus cases again. In fact, the positivity rate now crossing 0.5% in Delhi. Is a night curfew the answer at this point?
Definitely, this is very important step taken by Honorable Chief Minister, and we have seen that the number of cases is gradually increasing. The positivity rate was less than 0.1% last week, and in last 5-6 days, it's gradually increasing, and today it's more than 0.5%. Right. We have seen that the number of cases, earlier we hardly have 5 or 6 cases per day. Now we have more than 100 cases in the Loknayak alone. So we can see that the surge of the cases, and we have the New Year celebration parties, late night parties, and they can be the source of big infection. So this is the right step. Definitely we need to have more restrictions, but this is a very good decision.
Dr. Om Srivastava, would you also be advocating more restrictions rather than less at this point, given the kind of crowds that we've seen? The Prime Minister also asking for citizens to exercise restraint and caution. That doesn't seem to be happening. Massive crowds, both at Mumbai's beaches, at Delhi's markets. In Kolkata, we saw those massive Christmas crowds on Park Street. So it's really something that's playing out in city across city. In India, are there, would you say that people are just dismissing Omicron as not as scary as Delta? Cases haven't been so severe, so people feel they can weather this one out?
So thank you for having me on your show, Ankita. Are restrictions going to work? Look, I don't know if that is going to be, the definitive answer. Of course, it is going to limit the total amount of transmissibility. But by and large, in the cold of North India, or other parts of the country, why only North India, by the time it gets to 11 o'clock, a lot of people are indoors in any case. So that's probably going to be a little bit self-limiting, restriction in the first place. I must admit that, look, after having been through the second wave of COVID, if, individuals are not able to exercise restraint by seeing what has happened to them or other people that they know, or read and heard about it from the other friends of theirs, then I'm afraid I don't think that any amount of government kind of restrictive process is going to stop them from doing what they want to. I think that this amount of desire to be outdoors and be having a good time, even at the cost of their health, this restriction must come from their own mind, because I don't see how governments will continue to impose this over a long period of time. See, Omicron, by all projections, it is going to be around in this country at least till about February or March of next year. And that's when the peak of the third wave is going to be. We're going to be seeing them. How long are you going to restrict people from coming out? So it has got to come from the own people who are, as you already rightly pointed out, in places like Kolkata and other, weddings and other such gatherings. If you are going to be having the same kind of numbers, then we have to be prepared for the kind of numbers that we saw, not necessarily in the second wave, but also in the first wave. Unfortunately, the bulk of the price for this kind of a misdemeanor is going to be paid by the vast majority of people who are responsible and not by the people who are irresponsible. So I have to say that restrictions from the point of view of a government, I don't think it's going to be achieving what you'd like to achieve. People must take the responsibility of their own health and their own social movement before you say that, yes, Section 144 has been imposed in, X, Y, or Z.
Having said that, though, Dr. Srivastava, we've been seeing political rallies carry on unimpeded either. So it's one thing to have curfews for citizens, but then you have political leaders, the same people who are asking for those curfews or asking for restrictions themselves on the campaign trail. And if we can try and get some of those visuals up, there have been rallies in several cities today, so rallies by day and curbs and curfews at night. Dr. Sibal, can we have sort of two sets of rules, as it were, for politicians and for ordinary citizens?
Well, I think the key point, Ankita, here is that we really, each one of us has to understand that it's really up to us in terms of adhering to COVID avoidance behavior. See, let's when the COVID pandemic started, everybody was hopeful it'll be a year and it'll end. Now it's 2 years and we are actually seeing numbers increase globally. So it's not going anywhere. So the question here is that, yes, you can have restrictions from time to time, but it really is about masking. It has to be a way of life for the foreseeable future. We don't know how long that's going to be, but masking definitely, hand washing, sanitizing definitely, and social distancing definitely. And it is for everyone to realize that, accept it. There is always going to be resistance. I mean, you look at the West, the kind of resistance they have for vaccination. With vaccines being available for such a long time, and there's a group of people that are just not willing to get vaccinated. There's such a strong lobby. So, it's really for individuals to realize their sense of responsibility. They owe it to themselves, they owe it to their families, they owe it to the community, they owe it to the state, they owe it to the country. And I think that is something that needs reinforcement over and over again, because let's face it, when the numbers started to decrease, people thought we are out of this. So, parties started,
we're
weddings
essentially
started.
seeing the same events sort of repeating that we saw before the Delta wave as well. And, that was a lesson in caution if there ever was one. But Dr. Vidyasagar, several weeks into this Omicron surge globally, what are we really learning about the level of severity of this particular coronavirus variant? And, is there a way we should calibrate our response to this surge?
So I think that there are two separate issues one has to look at. One is, does Omicron bypass previous vaccination? And the second, does Omicron bypass the natural immunity conferred by prior exposure to the Delta variant, for example? And here, if you look at South Africa on one side and the European countries on the other side, they are mirror images of each other. So the European countries have had very high vaccine penetration, but very low seropositivity. So that means they don't have that much by way of natural antibodies. If you look at South Africa, their vaccine penetration is only 41% amongst adults, compared with 60% for us in the second dose and 85% in the first dose. But their seropositivity is very high. It's something in the 70%. Just like in India, it is also 75%. So I think we should really look at what's happening in South Africa to get an idea of what is likely to happen in India. And there are a few striking features if you look at the South African data. So from a bottom of about 200 cases per day in middle of November, the number of cases went up to about 25,000 in the middle of December 14, 15, that kind of time frame. So the number of cases went up by a factor of 100. But the number of hospitalizations has gone up only by a factor of about 6 or 7. And the number of deaths has gone up only by a factor of 8. Now, even allowing for the fact that hospitalizations and deaths trail cases by 10 to 12 days, it's very clear that Omicron leads to a very large surge in the number of cases without a commensurate increase in hospitalization or deaths. So this is what I think we should be looking at in India. Right.
Dr. Suresh Kumar, is that an assessment that you would agree with? Do we know enough about the Omicron variant at this point to, not for a moment to suggest that we should be complacent about it. I don't think that's the point at all. But, is there a sense that it's going to be less severe? Is this the pandemic really sort of, now heading towards the endemic stage, as some experts have now suggested?
So far, we have admitted 51 cases of Omicron in our hospital, Loknayak, and we have successfully discharged 40. And we have seen that large number of these patients are either asymptomatic, and only few have, 4 patients out of 40 have the mild symptoms, low-grade fever, sore throat, body ache, weakness, or 1 patient have diarrhea. So we have seen that the clinical profile of these patients is different from the Delta, and most of these are mild one, and majority of these patients don't require oxygen support or ventilator or ICU or any remdesivir. So this is the major change in the Omicron variant, which we have observed in last 3 weeks. So in time to come, when we have the more and more experience about this variant, because right now we are having only patient from the Omicron affected countries, international travelers who are relatively healthy, and the young age group, less than 60, all the patients are between 18 to 60. But we have not seen the elderly population who are infected with the Omicron. We have not seen the pregnant women. We have not seen the children who are infected. So by and large, we can say that the majority of these patients are asymptomatic or have mild problem, and they don't require ICU care.
All right.
That is important.
Okay.
If I might just come in and comment about UK.
Yes.
So, we heard about South Africa. So UK is a very interesting study because, if you look at the country, they've been giving the boosters, and they've actually had more than 120,000 individuals turning positive a day. So that's very sizable. And if you look at what they found with Omicron, the need for someone positive to visit the emergency department is about 30 to 45% less than with Delta.
Right.
The need for hospitalization is between 40 to 70% less than Delta. Now, those are the key parameters that I think we need to be aware of. Yes, the numbers of Omicron are increasing globally, and that might happen in India as well.
Right.
But preliminary data shows that while this variant is more infectious, it does not cause serious disease.
Right.
Having said that, of course, we need to be fully prepared for every contingency, but that I think is positive news.
All right. We leave it at that. All of you, thanks very much indeed for joining us tonight on Left, Right and Center.